Hey everybody, welcome back to Hammer Away. This is the day of overdoing it. This is my third installment today, and this is getting better and better each time. As you can see, we're marching on with Toby Jepson of Little Angels this time, and we'll see you in just a second.
Can you dig it? Can you dig it? Can you dig it?
And let's get started. We've got Mr. Toby Jepson right here with us in the studio.
Hello,
how are you, my friend?
I'm good. Great to be back on the show, and you're looking as handsome as ever. You handsome devil, you. How are you doing?
It.
How you doing?
You're stealing my lines now. That's
yeah, it's good. It's good. Yeah, it's exciting. Exciting times, Stu. Exciting times.
It's crazy. I was just going over. Like I say, I had a show early today that I did where I went through some vinyl. The second show I did was a little background on the band Little Angels, to get everybody ready for this. And I was learning stuff because, it was when I got to know the band, it was when I was doing some writing, and I got to know the guy from Polydor, and he hooked me up, and I stayed with him and doing the writing through Young Gods. And then was on, I didn't know that Jam came out and all that kind of stuff. But so we kind of went through some of that. But what I'd like to do is a quick I got 3 questions for you for a lightning round. Normally I do 5, but you've been on the show. It's almost like Saturday Night Live. You're like my 5 timers club almost, right?
Fire away.
So
fire away.
What did you learn most about your Little Angels tunes when you revived them for your busker sessions? Was there something that you learned a lot about?
Yeah, there was. I think I didn't realize that how much of the songs were written really in the first person, about myself. Because at the time when I was writing those tunes, it was very much driven by the kind of concept of how do a group of young people from the northeast of England, how do we escape that little town, and how do we take on the world, and how do we do that? And it was about getting out of that sort of embattled, almost like you feel a bit embattled, I think, when you're a teenager. You don't when you're a little. What we certainly did. We sort of felt, well, we're constrained up here on this little place, and we want to move out. We want to take on the world. But really, the reality was an awful lot of the characters were really essentially myself. And it was something I didn't kind of realize until I sort of re-examined them. And I think the Buskers was a cool period because it allowed me to look at those songs in their purest form. What was I actually saying? And I know that might sound strange to your listeners here, being the songwriter, but part of the thing of being a songwriter is that there is hidden depths and layers to what you're doing yourself anyway. That's the way I look at it. It doesn't have to be about one thing. And I certainly it was quite a revelation to me that I thought actually most of these characters, like Johnny in Kicking Up Dust or the guy in Don't Pray for Me, really I was kind of like talking about myself. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. What a great tune. I mean, that whole album was my introduction. I didn't know about Tupac Tamash. And then when he got me that album, that was just, I don't know.
It's a good record. I mean, Yeah, very proud of that record. I mean, we've been, obviously we're talking about it a lot at the moment because we're coming back and doing the tour over here, and Don't Pray for Me is very much in our orbit. We realize how important that record was. I mean, that's the kind of crazy thing. I know it might sound crazy, but we were all saying we didn't realize what we were doing at the time. I think in a mad way, that's sort of a really good thing. The kind of naivety of that period is something that's really quite potent, because what you're really doing is exposing yourself completely without thinking too much about it. You're not overthinking it, you're just letting it happen, and it's only in hindsight that you realize what you've managed to achieve. And I just think we sort of very by a lot of luck, I think really we made a really good sort of debut record that was better than we possibly could have imagined, but it's only really become sort of apparent now, sort of thing, in lots of ways, with the benefit of hindsight and all that.
Yeah, and you know what? I just had a thought go through my head about that album, and because I dug it when I heard it, and I still really dig it now. And there's things, because it's due to kind of your writing, the way you think, the way that you communicate through these songs. it has there's a timelessness, if I can say that,
Mm.
where you kind of I mean, we've lived through all the hard rock and all the rock and roll times that, you know, we've spoken about on the Shoulders of Giants
Yeah.
and all those songs that came before too. But you know, there's a point at which you can still think about those songs and they're still calling out to you today and they're still giving you the same fire, even though, you know, you don't have to be a
Mm.
certain age to get it.
Yeah. Yeah. No,
There's
I think
still
I
a
think that's
power
really
with it.
true. Yeah, no, I think that's a really good observation, and I think the reasoning behind that really is to do with I don't know. It's a sort of this hidden, like I said, there's hidden things when you're young people and you're inspired by your heroes to go out and make music, which is essentially why we all do it. I think everyone has to admit that we want to go out and sort of emulate our heroes. It's quite a sort of a subtle progression from that into making your own music. But it's important how that music appears, and it's not something that you really construct. You can't sit down and draw a blueprint for it. It has to evolve and has to become something. And I know that my publisher at the time, when we first signed to Polygram Music, Lucian Grange, he sort of said, you know, he felt that all the reason our songs worked is because they had a kind of conversational narrative. They weren't asserting a position. They were basically observing who we were as people, and that in itself was the connective tissue between the band and the audience. And I didn't really understand what he meant at the time because I was just writing the songs, and because I was the lyricist and really the principal songwriter, I wasn't kind of smart enough at the time. I wasn't experienced enough to understand that. I was just acting upon instinct, and I think therein lies the heart of this, is that if you can tap your instincts, if you can talk about the things that you genuinely feel and you can find a way of communicating those ideas, then you are onto something. But it doesn't mean to say that you're aware of it. I think when you're young, it's very hard to be completely aware of that. I mean, there are some amazing artists. I mean, I always think about David Bowie, how enormously aware that guy was of himself from day one. But I certainly wasn't like that. I was quite naive and very, very young at heart, I think, really. And it took a little while to understand that. And weirdly, I think looking back on that record, we've all been saying recently that actually a lot of those songs like Kicking Up Dust and Don't Pray For Me, they seem to mean more now that we've got some distance from them, strangely. I think now we're grown-up people and we're men in our 50s. Actually, the narratives and the ideas and the lyrics and the concepts, they actually seem to mean more now than they did then, in a crazy way, because I don't know why that is, but it certainly seems that way, you know.
Yeah, it could just be that the fact that you've matured through with all the music and in that realm where you're not, you know, in the norm of the days. I don't know, you know, with putting on the suits,
Yeah.
going to work. I mean, I don't know if any of the other gentlemen have done that or what they've had
Well,
for,
no, I mean, I
you know,
think you're
few
right. I
years.
think there is essence of that is the essence of it. But I think it's a lot to do with you know, you got to remember that we did this for a job. I mean, we were very, very lucky. We got a record deal when we were very young. I mean, Jim, the keyboard player, was 16. He couldn't even sign his record deal. He had to get his mum and dad to sign the record deal because he was too young, you know. So we were very, very young. We were young people. I was 18. You know, Bruce was 18. Mark was 18. I think Mark might even been 17, actually. So, you know, we were young kids and we didn't really know what we were doing at all. We were sort of handed this golden handshake, and we were thrown into the bear pit. And then it was like, you know, you got to fight your way out, or you're not going to survive. And so, I think there was a lot of that. I think we were very tenacious. I think we were committed to what we wanted to do. But it was a job. You know, we quickly realized it was very much a day-to-day job. You know, we were in the rehearsal room every day, 8 hours a day, 6 days a week sometimes, working on our tasks and working on our job. And we took it very seriously. And so I think it kind of, in that motivational sort of situation, that experience, driven by the fact that we knew we had this golden opportunity, we didn't want to let it go. But I definitely think that strangely didn't give us enough information. The information came later. We figured stuff out later on, you know, so we were kind of acting upon just, like I say, just acting on our instincts and just getting dead excited about being in a record deal with a band that was actually doing something. You know, it was extraordinary time. It's very hard to describe it, actually. It really is very hard to sort of, you know, to sort of somehow explain it to people what that felt like. I mean, I was getting up in the morning and going to work as far as I was concerned, but my work was picking up a guitar, going to a rehearsal room for 8 hours and making a racket, you know, which is pretty extraordinary, you know.
Yeah. Yeah. Back in the day, I had that opportunity. That's what I would have done. I just wanted to be a rock star when I was in high school. That's what I wanted to do. So
yeah,
you know,
it's a mad concept, isn't it? I mean, you know, anyway.
It is, and I think probably a lot of that spills over into throughout your career. Personally, the things that you're telling me are the things that you possess as far as drive, tenacity, and all those things. Those things are all necessary still now with everything that you're doing. So,
probably more so, Stu. Probably more so because as you get older, it gets tougher, and so it's like you've lost that naive edge. I sort of mourn the lack of naivety, really, in a way, because there's something really beautiful about the simplicity of just doing something for the sake of doing it, and even though you don't probably fully understand it, but therein lies the truth of it. There is a lot of honesty in that. You know, if you can wear your heart on your sleeve and you're brave, if you can be brave. I don't think I thought myself as being brave at the time when I was writing these tunes, but I definitely felt myself as a kind of I felt a spirit. I had a spirit, and I knew I had a spirit of adventure, and I wanted to explore that spirit of adventure, and I wanted to, you know, get out on the road and make some statements and say some stuff and hope that it helped people. That's what I really wanted to do, and I think we all did that. You know, we all felt that, but you don't really know what you're doing. You know, you don't really have much of a clue about where it's going to go. You just have to sort of follow the trail. You know,
absolutely. Well, and at that time, you don't have family either. You don't have a family you've got to concern yourself about, or, you know.
Yeah, totally. Yeah.
Those are the things that always, I don't know, those are the things that always trip me up now and again. You know, I was like, you know, maybe.
Yeah, I know.
For anyone new to Little Angels, what 3 songs would you want them to hear first?
That's very simple to me. That would be Radical Your Lover, because I think that's arguably I think the best thing we ever recorded. I really think it is. I think it's a real moment, that we just hit upon that idea. I mean, me and Bruce co-wrote that song with Dan Reed. Of course, Dan Reed Network at the time, they had their first record out when we were making that album, and we were in love with that album
record too.
God. I think it's the best one they made. I genuinely think that first Network album is astoundingly good.
Yeah.
I mean, I think you know, I think Slam was great too, but I really think the first Network album is just special. Do
you know? I got turned on to that by Jan Keeneman from Vixen.
Oh, right. Okay. Well, I mean, she's got great taste, because it's a brilliant album. I mean, we were knocked out by that album. So to work with Dan Reed on that song, I mean, it was a weird one, really, because we wrote the tune and we recorded it for the first album, but it didn't really start to stand up. And we put it at the back, the first version of the album, we put it at the back end of the album, and then the album didn't really do that well. And so Polydor were hunting around for a song. How can we get a hit record? We need a hit record, because Kicking Up Dust hadn't activated. It had done better in your country, in the US, than it had in Britain, actually, funny enough, that song. And Don't Pray For Me hadn't hit, and we were getting really frustrated by the whole thing. And so we went and re-recorded that song with horns. The first time we used horns on it, on a track. We totally rearranged it. In fact, I've got to say that it was Jim Dickinson, the keyboard player, who came up with the concept to make that song into what it was. It was entirely down to him. He had a real vision for it. And it just worked. The whole thing just worked. And so I think that's a really good overall encapsulating song that demonstrates what Little Angels are: the horns, the melodies, the kind of cheeky narrative, etc. So I think that song, I would say Don't Pray For Me. It's probably arguably the most important song that I've ever written, and I think it's certainly the most successful song for the fans. It wasn't a hit song for us, but over the years it's grown in stature, and that song represents to most of the fans the kind of pinnacle of what the band achieved with that kind of song, that kind of ballad-esque, ballady sort of slow tune, but of course a conversational narrative. Very connective to the audience, and it's talking about them, really. Even though it's about me, actually it's really projecting onto the audience. So that song, and I think I'll probably say, goodness me, there's quite a few. Probably actually Boneyard. I think probably Boneyard, because Boneyard, second album, Young Gods album, it's a brilliant piece of recording, and the producer Jimbo Barton, he really came into his own on that song, and he really got it. And he took up what was a very simple idea and built a real beast out of that song. And I absolutely love playing that song live. It's a real hairs on the back of the neck song. So I think those three, there'd be a real good start. Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Do you, well, that's a big question. I'm not going to ask that. And then simply
ask away, mate. It's fine.
I got simply one more question, which actually has a little back end question to it. But
okay,
just how fucking cool is it to be doing the Little Angels tour later this year?
Wow, goodness me, how long have you got? It's been a long time coming, and the conditions had to be right. I mean, it's like it's like trying to herd cats with a fork, trying to get us lot together. It really is, But
I did that last week. I hate it.
I know exactly. Just try it. You'll know what I mean. It's extraordinary. I mean, after all of these years, what is most gratifying is that the songs remain as potent to the fans as they ever did before, and we've been trying to do this for several years, for the last sort of 3-4 years really, and every time we tried to do it, an obstacle's got in the way. Something's happened, someone's Bruce got an injury in his arm, and he had to sort of like stop playing guitar for quite a while, and then he had to recover from that, and then there was a number of other sort of business aspects of things that got in the way, and then that happened, so I got to a point sort of, I don't know, a year or 18 months ago, I just thought this is never going to happen. We're never going to be able to pull this together. But miraculously, out of the blue, we hit this moment where it was like, well, we ought to do this. Are we going to do this? And we all just got on Zoom, and it was like, what are we waiting for? But here's the crucial thing. When we got back together in 2012 for the Reformation tour, back then, that was the first time we'd ever been on a stage with each other. Well, we'd been on the stage with each other since the end of the band, which was the Royal Albert Hall. The last show we ever played in the UK was the Royal Albert Hall, and that was in 1994. So we did it in 2012. So a long time, a lot of water under the bridge. So, but we did that expressly to kind of reconnect with each other emotionally, to put our arms around each other and say, I forgive you, because there was a lot of shit that went on at the end of the band, which was unfortunate and sad, and we it should never have happened, but it did. And so it was almost like a kind of, we had to forgive each other, and we wanted to sort of just make friends again and all that. But primarily it was driven by the death of Michael Lee, who was what we would consider our original drummer from the band, who made all of the first 2 records with us. Of course, Michael had played with Page and Plant and the Cult and various other people, and he'd sadly passed away just prior to us getting back together. And so it was really a celebration of his life and a celebration of our music, but it wasn't a deep dive. It was very much of the attitude we had at the time was, let's just do this to say thank you to the fans. Let's see how it goes. But really, it's a one-off deal, and we're not going to do it again. And that was the kind of the message. But, you start to realize that you might not have an awful lot many years left. And the reality is that the music really means something to our audience. And it was showing no signs whatsoever of waning. In fact, if anything, the interest in the band was going up and up and up and up. And all my period of time through the Wayward Son stuff, it was constantly being asked by the fans, are you ever going to put the Little Angels back together? And that was asked by record company people I know, promoters, agents, friends, fans. It was a constant chorus of, why aren't you doing this? And so I think we got the message. I think we sort of went, well, why aren't we doing this? You know, we're idiots. You know, well, but the big thing for me, Stu, the big thing for me was I said to the guys, if we're going to do this, it cannot just be for one tour. We have to have a long game on this because we're only in our 50s. I mean, I look at someone like one of my closest friends, you know, Biff from Saxon. The guy's in his mid 70s. He's still up there punching the air, having a great time, singing Wheels of Steel to sold out audiences all over the world. Why? And I said to the guys, why can't we do that too? And you know, of course, everyone's gone off into different departures in their life. You know, Bruce and Jim are both teachers. You know, Mark Plunkett's a very successful pop manager. He manages Ronan Keating and a couple, you know, and he's been very much embroiled in that world. And Mark Richardson, the drummer, he's in Skunk and Nancy, and so he's playing drums in another band anyway. So it's understandable how difficult it was to pull it together. But once we started talking, it just made so much sense. And so there is a long game on this. It's not just one tour goodbye. There definitely will be another album. There will be a new Little Angels record. How and when that happens, not certain as yet, but we can talk about that more if you want to. But we're looking at that right now, with no guarantees when. But it's the very fact we can even say we're going to make a Little Angels album. Believe me, Stu, is something else. I mean, because I never thought I'd ever hear those words come out of my mouth ever again. But it's prompted by the fact, you know, the tour in the UK as we're going to sell the whole thing out, and we've got 8 months to go, and we've nearly sold half of it out already. So there's obviously an appetite for it. There's a real structured plan. There is a long game. We're getting offered every festival in Europe you can imagine. We're getting offered record deals. You know, it's happening. And so I just said to the guys, look, all in, one in, all in. And if we're going to do it, let's do it properly. So that's where we are.
Wow, that's exciting, man. I'm hoping. I don't know. I have a hope that I could get over there and see you guys. Like I say, I have a friend of mine who's going to be seeing the Glasgow show. So, so I'll keep in touch with you about her too.
Great.
I actually met her at a Wayward Son show when I was over there.
Cool, man. Yeah, no, absolutely. Yeah. Well, you know, we would hope we never really made a good fist of it in the US anyway, you know, so we would hope that there might be some opportunity to come and play in the US. I mean, we did a few shows, we did bits and pieces. We toured with Yngwie Malmsteen, you know, on the East Coast and into Canada, but we never really had an opportunity because the record company lost heart. Really, they sort of, you know, back then in the 80s, early 90s, it was an impossible task to get a band like Little Angels to get their head above the parapet when they had bands, your own homegrown bands that were doing something very similar. You know, your Skid Row, Slaughter, you know, all these bands, Extreme. You know, we were in the same pen, if you like, and it was very difficult to sort of like justify a British band coming and doing that. You know, we weren't Def Leppard. I mean, Def Leppard had done it the generation before when there wasn't quite so much going on. You know, so there's a sort of it didn't really work for us. We sort of hit a sticky wicket. So my dream has always been to get back and, you know, go on tour with another band in the US as Little Angels, and to show the American audiences that we what we're worth, you know. So I would hope that that's something in the future, you know.
I think it'd be great if you could get if we could get a young band before that would open, then have it. If it would be great if we could get it. A few different bands in there, get you and you guys doing this, you know, the headlining, whatever, you know, whatever order those two are going to go in. But then if you can get there's so many really cool young bands out there that are doing some great stuff. That would be really cool to bring some of those along too.
Well, without a doubt. I mean, you know, but I think the kind of reality for us with something like a US tour would be, we'd need to open for a Def Leppard or a that kind of size band, you know. I mean, I know Joe very well, you know, so, you know, we have talked a little bit about things. So who knows? I mean, at the moment, what we're mainly concerned with is getting the tour right, getting the set right, you know, looking at how we're going to do this new music, when we're going to do this new music. And, but it feels good. You know, it does feel good.
Yeah. Well, I think if anybody, I mean, I don't know. I'd have to really think about it because there's so many of these bands that I just, that would be like one of the only ones that I would suggest.
Okay.
It's just hard. It's just tough. I mean, I'm really getting to that point. I don't know where you are with it. If you check out a lot of how these bands are these days, you know, there's some things there that I'm like, woof.
Oh, I know.
I get
I know. It's.
I get worried. I saw
Oh, I
Gone
know.
Dockin recently.
Hmm.
You know,
Yeah,
and
I
I'm
know,
just
man.
like,
We are in a kind of crazy era where we are seeing the sort of end of one giant era of music. I mean, you only have to look at the White Snake, Black Sabbath. We've lost a lot of great. I mean, poor old Phil Campbell dying
yep,
last week, and of course,
yes,
there's a number of other sort of not people passing away, but just bands giving up, stopping, and no longer being what they are, or what they were. So, but the
yep,
way that I look at that is that's kind of why I kind of want to do Little Angels again, because I think at the end of the day we were from that era, the slightly later era, of course. We were the next generation after the Van Halens and the
right,
and those bands, but we do sort of fill a bit. I think we could fill a bit of a space, and we could occupy a position, given the fact that we make that kind of music and there's not a lot of it around anymore. So
right.
because I don't know about you, I'm not enormously enamored with a lot of the new rock and roll that's coming out. I've got to be honest. I think there's a lack of vision. I have to be honest, and I'm not saying that
Mhm.
to be arrogant. I just think there is. I
No,
think it's not the same as it
no,
used to be. There's not that kind of real passionate, visionary new music. I mean, I don't know if about you when because we're similar age, but I mean, I can remember when I
mhm,
used to go to my rock club in Scarborough every single week from about 1982 to about 1987, 88. Every single week there was a new great band, that was unique, that brought a different sound. And if it wasn't the new Van Halen record, it was Def Leppard Pyromania. If it wasn't that, it was like,
yeah,
it was whoever else. There was just a plethora of bands that just appeared, and every one of them was unique and different. Whereas now everything just seems very homogenized and very ordinary and very, very familiar. And that isn't what rock and roll's about. It's about innovation. It's about having a new Eddie Van Halen. Where's the new Eddie Van Halen? Where's the new creative forces that take this music form that we absolutely adore and shake it by the scruff of the neck and change it again? Where are those artists? I don't hear them. I really don't. And I'm not saying that I'm that artist. I'm just saying that I'm
right,
observing that from a distance.
right,
And I
right.
I look at something like a band that I always use as a point of reference is Aerosmith, because Aerosmith,
Mhm.
they were influenced by the Beatles, the Rolling Stones, their previous generation. But what they did was they took it and they made it into their own thing. And there isn't a bad Aerosmith record out there, I don't think. Some aren't as good as others, but every
Right.
Aerosmith record has a definitive, a narratively clever, exciting premise. I mean, I've recently got really into Nine Lives and Just Push Play. I think those two records are really underrated, but
I do
brilliant
too. Yeah.
records. And
Yeah.
and if there's ever a band that I think Little Angels have a kind of like kinship with is Aerosmith, not because we look like them or sound like them, but we write narrative based
Yeah.
songwriting. It is very much from that old school stable of the Beatles and those kind of songwriters, real songs,
Yeah.
whereas I just don't think that's the vibe anymore. I think a lot of bands think a riff is a song, and it really isn't. There's not enough depth, there's not enough layers to it. It doesn't involve you enough, and there's no conversation. And so I sort of feel that maybe we're at the bottom of a trough. I really hope that there's going to be some innovative rock and roll come out of this trough. I do think we're at the bottom of a trough, and it does come and go. Like it's like a sine wave, the music business. We do go to the top, and we have these great moments like the '80s rock period, and then we dip down again, and then we find ourselves back to Nirvana and that movement. Blah blah blah, and on it goes. Punk rock. Sort of whatever it would be, new wave. All these things happen, but then we have to hit the bottom to come back again. So I think we are at the bottom of a trough at the moment. I think we will hopefully rebuild our way back out of it.
Yeah. And I mean, do you think a lot of that has to do with, th- well, I hate to use I hate to use this term as much as I hate to talk about the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame, which is a huge joke. Um, but with the change in the music industry and how it's evolved and devolved, and
Hmm.
because I mean,
Yeah, yeah,
when
yeah,
I
yeah,
think of
you,
bands, I'm thinking of bands like Thunder Mother. I love those. Those
mm,
gals are doing a killer job.
mm.
Um, and there's certain bands that have taken some of these bands out. Like I can't remember. KK's Priest took Scorpions took out Thunder Mother. They took them on tour. KK's Priest took out Burning Witches on tour. I think they're a great band. And oddly enough, both are female bands. But, I think there's other stuff out there. There are bands that maybe have already peaked out and are done, like Santa Cruz, where you got the singer and the guitar player do smoking Van Halen-y, I won't say that it sounds like Eddie, but it shreds. It's a complete shred fest. And I remember watching, what the hell's the name of it? I can't say it now. It's Aiming High is what it's called. And the singer singing, does the chorus, goes into the guitar solo, guitarist is shredding. Right after that, the singer starts shredding. And I'm like, well, what the hell? You got two of you guys. This is amazing.
Yeah.
And Confess is another band. They're out of France, I believe. They're doing some kick-ass stuff over there. And I think they got a brand new album that's coming. So I think there's some things out there, but that's for a conversation that like you and I can have at some point where you have a chance to check out some of these other bands and you're like, oh yeah, but this is what I'm talking about. This isn't there. Did you notice that? Or, you know what I'm saying? That's the conversation that I like,
I think you're onto something there. I think you are. I think there is. I'm not saying that there isn't some great stuff out there. There always is. There's always going to be some stuff buried there. But I think the music business has changed so much. The gatekeepers aren't the same anymore. I think there's too much music. I've got to be honest. I do. I think it's kind of like become a bit like white noise. We can't find our way through the miasma of all this noise. And record companies might be defunct in lots of ways, but really the reason why they worked is because they were the arbitrators, they were the gatekeepers, they were the ones that kind of helped to understand and sift through what is working and what isn't working, and they were very experienced people. A&R was a really important part of a record label, and there isn't any A&R anymore. There's no one helping bands to understand what they are and what they are doing and trying to define where these real innovative moments are and where these innovative bands are. What I'm trying to say is, and I don't want to be rude to anyone because it's I always admire anyone who's got the balls to get hold of pick up a guitar and go on a stage. I'm all with you, but I think it's a lot more than that. I think we have to be really honest with ourselves. It's not. Do you know the biggest problem is? An awful lot of bands now think of it as a business. All they're thinking about is how do I take part in the market? They use these words, business, market, marketing. They use that before they use the word music. We shouldn't be thinking about how we're going to market the band and how it's a business. We should be thinking about, are we making great music? What have we actually got to say? Where is our unique thing? What's the thing that we're doing that's different to everyone else? Because as far as I can tell, most people are aping everybody else. It only has to be a Blackstone Cherry record come out, and all of a sudden everyone's copying their riffs and making their own albums and pretending that they've got this, they've written that riff, and that is just not good enough as far as I'm concerned. Yeah. We've already got a Blackstone Cherry. We don't need another one. What we need is a unique something of somebody else, and that's the problem as far as I can see. And when Little Angels were a young band, I'm not saying that we were utterly unique. We wanted to be Van Halen, we wanted to be Bon Jovi, we wanted to be Def Leppard, but within all of that, what evolved out of that influence was our own thing, and it became something that we absolutely understood and we grasped onto and we developed. And so that process it's rare because we were given that opportunity because we got a big record deal from a Universal record label, and they put lots of money into us and gave us the time to do it. So we were very privileged. I'm not for one second would not say that otherwise. But even if we hadn't had that, I can tell you now, we would have wanted to be our own thing. We didn't want to be the same as our favorite bands. We just didn't. We wanted to be our own thing. Whereas I don't see that now. I think a lot of people ape other people and then try and pretend that it's their thing. And I think it's not. I don't think that's good enough.
Interesting. I never did ask this further question about how cool it is to be doing this again, but it kind of goes along with what we're talking about. Do you think, because you've mentioned, when you guys stepped away from it after Jam, Do you think the decision to step away after that moment is further like justified in the fact that you are selling so well already for this tour that's coming up?
Yeah, I think there's a lot in that. I think that's a really astute observation. I think the further we got away from Little Angels, the more potent it's become, and that's because we left on a real high. It's because we went out at the top. We didn't splutter
Right.
and fall apart and end up in the clubs playing in front of 50 people 3 years later. We ended at the Royal Albert Hall, with a number one album, in the background, and 10 top 40 hits, and everyone wondering why we were splitting up. And it was one of those situations. It was kind of, everyone was like aghast. I mean, even I can remember the guy that was our merchandise, who ran our merchandise company, Barry Drinkwater. He turned to me at the end of the Royal Albert Hall and said, "What are you lot splitting up for? Look at all these people. What's happened?" And we couldn't really answer that question. I mean, it's a very difficult, convoluted, complicated conversation. This is because there was a lot of forces behind the band that were machinating against us, and it was, there was partly to do with the scene, as we've talked about before, about the whole grunge scene was coming in and sort of taking over. But my argument has always been, those 7,500 people, or those people that bought Art Made as a number one album, were never going to go anywhere. They weren't going to sort of all of a sudden ignore Little Angels because Nirvana had a new album out. It was a complete
Thank you
joke.
for saying that. You're absolutely right.
Absolutely ridiculous.
That's stupid.
I mean, and I never understood, but the industry thought that's what was going to happen. They thought, oh no, well, that's all over now. No one's going to play guitar solos. I mean, if you listen to a Soundgarden album, there's guitar solos all over it.
Yeah.
Same as Pearl Jam, same as Nirvana. Those things never. They just shifted the goalpost slightly. So that was to me, that was just like a stupid and ludicrous conversation to have. Oh well, all of a sudden our audience is going to start wearing stripy jumpers and staring at the shoes. It's not.
It's all flannel now.
Do you know what I mean? It's like absolutely ridiculous. But unfortunately, we weren't smart enough. The truth of it is that we weren't smart enough to actually ignore the naysayers and carry on. Whereas like a band like, say, Def Leppard did. I mean, I've talked to Joe about it, and he said we just put down tools for a little while. We just downed tools, and we just took a bit of a breath, and then we made the Slang album, which came 2 or 3 years later, and that was a sort of moderately successful record, but it demonstrated that they were willing to move with the times, but it just plugged a gap until they could get themselves back on the horse, and the music came back round again. It's just like, we should have done that, but we didn't. So it's and you know what, in a crazy way, Stu, it's the best thing we could have done, because right now we're a hot ticket and people want it to happen, and they're now reveling in the nostalgia of it all. But more than that, they're reveling in the idea that era can be repeated, that we can somehow help them enjoy that era for what it was worth. And I mean, we haven't announced we're going to make a new record yet. And like I say, I'm saying to you now, I don't know when that's going to happen.
Yeah,
but I'm pretty certain it will. When it will happen, don't know. But I think once we do make that decision and we start to talk about new music, I think that'll galvanize the hardcore fan base even more. And I think all of a sudden we'll start to enter we'll enter a new era, and hopefully we can make the best of it.
Absolutely. I had another. Can I jump back real quick? I have a quick nostalgia question for you.
Go on, of course.
And where did Mr. Thrud come from? the early name, like everybody's got an early name.
Well, we were daft students at sixth form college, which I don't know what is a similar thing in the US, but essentially, when you leave secondary school, which I guess is your high school, what we have in the UK is we go to sixth form college, which is like 2 years where you do what we call A levels, which is the next level of education. But it's a kind of young adult thing before you go to university, and you have to get your A levels before you can qualify to go to university. So that's the whole thing. But really, what it is, it's the first.
Yeah.
Oh, okay. Yeah. Similar thing. So, but what it really is, it's a way of exiting state education, and going into something that's more adult orientated, so you can wear your own clothes and you can be essentially you become like your first student, proper student, and so that brings a lot of baggage, of course, everyone's wearing long coats and sort of morping about with like eyeliner on, that sort of shit, and so we did it. So we were sort of dragging ourselves around, the sixth form college in Scarborough, and part of that whole scene is that's where I met Bruce, the guitar player, and I'd never seen anyone play guitar like that guy. He still to this day remains one of the greatest British guitar players that's ever come, ever, I think. And he's not given enough credit. He's a fantastically lyrical guitar player, and I'd never seen anyone play like it. But it was the first time I'd ever been into a world where these people existed. It was because all of the schools from all around the region, those who wanted to go to sixth form ended up at sixth form. So you're getting kids from different schools from all over the region. So you're meeting whole bunches of new people. And so we started to do some gigs and we started messing around. We used to do dinner time shows, and we just learned Van Halen covers and just messed about. But then there was there used to be a thing in the UK called the TSB. It was a bank called the TSB Bank. Okay. And they used to run a rock competition every year. For about 5 years, they ran it. And it's called the TSB Rock School Competition. And right at the point I met Bruce, that competition was launched for that year. And so we sort of said for a joke, well, why don't we just enter it? Why don't we just write some daft songs and we'll just enter the competition and see what we can do. Yeah. Now, that was the beginning of Little Angels, really. But what it did was it forced us to we had to get a band name, because we had to fill in the form to send off to we're going to record these demos. We hadn't even written any songs by this point, by the way, but so we had to do that,
Oh, sorry about that.
So
hold on.
It's okay. So then what we did was we filled in the form, and we were sat around a dining room in the dining room in the dining room where the buffet was, for the lunch buffet and all that.
Yeah.
And there was a magazine on the table, and it was a Dungeons and Dragons magazine. And I said to Bruce, let's just open this magazine, and whatever we see first, we'll call the band it, right? It's true. So we opened up the magazine, and in the middle of this magazine, there used to be a character called Thrud the Barbarian, who was a character in this Dungeons and Dragons magazine. And so and it said in the I think it said in the comic strip, Mr. Thrud goes a smashing or something like this, because there was a picture of this sort of like barbarian with a big axe. So we said, we'll call ourselves Mr. Thrud. So we just, that's what we called ourselves. So we wrote it down, and then we went off and wrote 3 really rubbish, silly songs for a joke. But it was the catalyst that got us going. Wow. I mean, we all of a sudden thought, hang on, this could be something really fun. And so it wasn't a very serious thing. I mean, we weren't being serious. We didn't think Mr. Thud was a great band name. We just did it for fun. But really that was the kind of the embryonic start of everything, really.
Wow.
Stupid, I know.
Okay, so you want a stupider question? Hold on.
Go on. Hit me, man. Hit me.
Just for fun, because prior to that, you and Mark Plunkett had done a band called Zeus.
That's right.
And I just was wondering, did during your work on Young Gods, did you ever think, oh yeah, and we had that band called Zeus?
Well, I mean, listen, it all feeds into the same pot, doesn't it? I mean, me and Mark Plunkett, we've known each other since we were sort of 7 or 8 years old, and we sort of grew up together, and there was nobody else who wanted in the band apart from Mark, and he'd never played a stringed instrument in his life, and I just gave, I said, well, you're going to be the bass player, and what's a bass? So it was like, he had to learn how to play the bass, having never played a bass, and and so we sort of we were just trying, and of course Zeus, it's one of those. I mean, I think there must be a million bands called Zeus, but to us it felt epic and legendary and all the rest of it. But I mean, I think all these things feed into. I mean, I think subconsciously you take your baggage with you, and you sort of you reuse things. I think that's the great thing about being a band when you've known people for a long time, is you end up reusing things, like recycling ideas, but you just do it better the next time. Sort of thing.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Well, let me bring this thing back up again, because ultimately I want to make sure that we wrap up. And I want to wrap up just a little bit early so that you can get to stuff, and also so I can chat with you real quick backstage. But we'll bring this piece back up, talking about the dates and everything that's happening. So you have your Big Bad and Back tour, and right now it's just November for the moment, right?
Yeah.
Okay. And then what have you, I know what you've already said earlier. Has there been any talk that you're like, okay, so after November, let's have a meeting, let's whatever?
Yeah, I mean, we're talking about a lot of things. I mean, we've been approached by a German promoter to do some shows in December, which are indoor festivals, which we're just looking at the moment. There's a lot of conversations about next year in terms of festivals. So we'll probably play. I mean, in the UK at the moment, there's 2 or 3 really great rock festivals that are building up. That Download's now become a kind of, it's a very modern rock festival. That's no longer catering for classic rock bands, really, unless you're Metallica.
Right.
So that's not a place that we could ever play again, I don't think. But there are some fantastic, what we're calling boutique festivals. One called Stone Dead, which is in Lincolnshire, which is about 5,000-6,000 people. It's a really family-orientated festival. It's really brilliant. I've played it twice with Wayward Sons. It's really great.
Wow.
There's a place called Steel House, which is a 3-day festival in South Wales, which again has about 6,000-7,000 people attend it, and that's really, really wonderful festival. And they've got some great bands playing there. They've got Steel Panther headlining one of the nights this year. They've got some great people, and so I think we'll end up playing those festivals for the next couple of years. But there is a longer term plan to do some bigger shows. If this tour goes well, which we hope it will, and it feels like it's going to, it's very likely we'll do some more shows in the UK, maybe the following year or maybe 18 months later into slightly bigger venues. But we're also potentially looking at opening for a significant band on a European tour. As an opening act, but as a more of a special guest kind of thing. So it's very much who we can find and what that can mean. There might be a conversation where we go out with maybe 2 bands into Europe that are similar status to us and go into theatres. That's one idea. And of course, we've got one of the greatest promoters in the world. Well, he's no longer a promoter, actually, funny enough, but one of the greatest promoters has ever lived in this country. Andy Coppin is one of our. He's the guy that used to book Download. He's a very close friend of ours, and he's now helping manage the band and put the whole project together. So we're talking to him actively about doing other things. And so I think it'll be a case of what comes our way, and what we think makes sense. I mean, we certainly don't want to dip below a certain level, and I don't think we have to. So it's a question of what that might look like, really.
Yeah. Outstanding. When did Dave Kemp step into your life?
Oh, Dave's been around since day one. I mean, Dave was a legend in Scarborough as a saxophone player, before the Little Angels even became a band. I mean, he used to play in a sort of big band with Bruce and Jim, with Bruce and Mark Plunkett. Mark Plunkett used to play trumpet, and Bruce Dickinson used to play guitar and saxophone himself. And Dave was in that band. It was called the Easy Band. It was like a county-wide big band, big brass section, drum kit, guitar, bass, and it was they used to do competitions, so Dave was involved in that, and so we always knew him. But when we started to sort of really lift, and we were doing a lot of big shows, Dave was actually in Chris Rea's band. So he was touring with Chris Rea all over the world. Wow. And so he wasn't involved with us. But when that came to a close and we were making our 3rd album, Jam, Dave joined the ranks as part of the Big Bad Horns, and it was him and Grant Kirkhope, and really he remained with us ever since then. And when the band came to a close, me and Dave just became really close friends, and we sort of worked on a lot of projects. He came on tour with me as a playing saxophone, and we've become best mates, really, and we're co-writers, and and he's an extraordinarily talented person. Extraordinary. He's the most talented. I think he's the most talented musician I've ever worked with.
Well, and let's face it, Toby, he looks terrific in a roasted turkey hat.
He does, and that's his best. That's the best aspect, to be honest.
Right.
It's the best aspect.
I mean, you almost want to tell me about Dave. You almost want to lead with that, but
you got to do. I mean, I think the roasted turkey hat, Christmas style. I mean, there's that, and there's Doris. There's Doris. He likes Doris. There's many layers to the man.
He's an onion. He just
He is
many
an onion.
layers.
He's definitely an onion.
Oh man. Well, we'll wrap it up there. All the best to everybody in the band. I am going to put this up. Here's a picture of all you guys right now. And I assume
handsome
you did this
bastards.
right? I mean, that's, you know, when you're looking at it, you're like, yep, we can still rock and roll, you know. I might
Man,
not
it
have
was
been.
it was just like a bunch of old blokes shuffling about, and that's really what it came down to. Like on a photo session, it's like, oh, me elbow, oh, me knees. You know, it's all a bit like that. But yeah, it's good. It's good. It's good. It's great. Honestly, it's so exciting and such great. It's such a joy to be doing it again. It really is.
Yeah. Oh, do me a quick favor. Just run across the photo for us.
Okay, so from left to right, that's Mark Plunkett, the bass player, and then the guy in the red jacket, that's Bruce Dickinson, the guitar player. I don't know who that really handsome guy in the middle is, but we'll ignore him for the moment. And next to that really handsome guy in the middle, that's Mark Richardson, the drummer, and the guy on the end there, that's Jim Dickinson, the keyboard player.
Fantastic. Yeah, it's great. I'm super excited. The only regret that I have right now as far as Little Angel stuff is concerned is I didn't get your live DVD from 2012. I was just checking in with Nige about that. I said, is there a way to get one of these still? And he goes, no.
Oh, there will be. Well, I think we've got a warehouse full of them somewhere.
Oh, well, please point me in the direction and I'll get there.
We can sort one out for you, mate, I'm sure.
Oh, that'd be great. Yeah, I'd love to have that. I was fortunate enough, like I say, I was fortunate enough when Nige listed out about these to be able to get those. And that was awesome. That was great. So, but cool, there was one other thing I wanted to show you. A friend of mine bumped into one of these at a record store. And I was like, did you get it? And he goes, no. I was like, well, okay. I couldn't get mad. He put me on his record. So, you know, but he did bump into one of those. I go, did you get it? Because I would love to have that. And he goes, no, I think it was 3.
Quite rare that as well. Tin box set. Quite rare.
Yeah. And then because you guys also had this one.
Yeah, we had a few. We had some really great formats, actually. I mean, the tin box things were a real favorite of ours. We had several of them. Yeah,
that's freaking cool. I'm just like, yeah, I would love that. That would be awesome. Yeah. But yeah, he has a great record store he goes to in Nottingham. So I'm looking forward to when I get over there to pop in there and check it out. He goes,
another great city, another brilliant city, Nottingham. Obviously, home of Rock City, one of the greatest venues in the world.
Yes, and that's that whole deal. Their Rock City Symphony album that's out now. So, well, good. Well, I'll let you get rolling. I'll talk with you real quick backstage, and I really appreciate the time today, man. It's always a pleasure and just a blessing.
Great stuff, guys. Thanks for listening, and yeah, see you out there.
Absolutely. And remember, everybody, as I always say, when you step out the door, you're in everybody else's world. They're not in yours. So try to act accordingly, you know. Look both ways.
Absolutely.
Think about it both ways. So,
absolutely.
So with that, I will get this started and we will be out in a moment. So take care, guys. I'll be back soon. Again, big thanks to Toby and a big all the best to everybody in Little Angels. And check out some of that new music. You know, there's some stuff out there and we have it here on the channel. So like and subscribe. Let us know what you think. And there's some stuff out there. We'll talk about it and we'll do it right here. Thanks a lot, everybody, for hanging. Thanks again, Toby. Talk to you.